Wolf of Fantasy Sports back with the DFS Wolfpack for NFL Week 11. Looking at DraftKings player pricing, 11 games on the main slate. I'm using Las Vegas odds from VegasInsider.com, NFL odds Las Vegas to help with the DraftKings player projections. Tom Brady starting at the quarterback position. New England at Oakland. If you look here, New England's given up 5.5 on the road to Oakland. This game could be a possible shootout, 7,400. I see Tom Brady 3+ touchdowns in this matchup. That's what I have him projected at. One of the top quarterbacks if you're paying up. Looking at Drew Brees, 6,800 at home, Superdome versus Washington. We saw Washington last week push the pace with Minnesota. That was a nice shootout game. Both quarterbacks had really high DraftKings points. Case Keenum and Cousins both put up. They're the top two quarterbacks of the week. So versus New Orleans, I can see Washington pushing the pace here. And I think this is a good matchup with Brees. Brees could throw the ball. We saw what Case Keenum was able to do. We haven't seen Brees really go off this year. He went off versus Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers, 24 DraftKings points. Then he had 29 DraftKings points week 2 versus Tom Brady. So I like Drew Brees. Think he's in play if you're paying up. Alex Smith, 6,700 on the road versus the Giants. The Giants, one of the worst teams in the league this year. With Jenkins back, they still lost to San Francisco 49ers. I think Alex Smith's going to have a big day here. Match him up with Kelsey, Ty Freak, Hunt. I think they're all in play. Matt Stafford on the road versus Chicago, not my favorite. 6,600. I just don't like the matchup here. The weather, you're going to have to check all that. But as of right now, I'm not a fan of Stafford at 6,600. Much rather pay up. Looking at Jared Goff, first Minnesota. We saw what Cousins was able to do, but Cousins, he ran in 2 touchdowns. Versus Minnesota, I really don't like this matchup all that much. I think Goff will have some trouble here, and this will be a true test for Goff. And I'd probably take the chance of fading him at 6,500. It's not like it was last week, where he had a really good matchup. But Goff's looked pretty good. So 6,500 versus Minnesota. On the road, this is a true test. I'm willing to fade him. Looking at Derek Carr at home versus New England. I think this would be a good game here. I think Carr and Cooper could go off in this spot. So I like Derek Carr. Look at him at home versus New England. I don't think their defense is all that great. They got Gilmore back, and I think Gilmore could get burnt by Cooper. So looking at Derek Carr, he's definitely in play. Kirk Cousins versus New Orleans. Could be a shootout game in the Superdome. Cousins is in play here. Put up 31 DraftKings points last week versus Minnesota, and he's been fairly productive. Seattle, not as good. Dallas, not as good. But Philly, he had a good game. So versus New Orleans, I could see him doing well. I won't have that much exposure to him because the New Orleans defense looked really good versus Buffalo, and I know it's Buffalo. They can't stop the run. They're just horrible. But they played a really good defense in Buffalo. So I think at home versus Washington, this team just completely did a turnaround. And they're really solid, both on offense and defense, and running the football. So Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the ball here. I believe they're going to be trailing versus New Orleans because the Washington cannot stop the run. And that's what New Orleans is really good at this year. They have 2 great running backs, Kamara, Ingram. I think Cousins is going to have to throw the football here. So I think he's in play at 6,100, not one of my favorite plays. Phillip Rivers, 5,900 versus Buffalo. He hasn't done much offensively. His DraftKings points have been low, 16, 11, 15, 14, 21 versus the Giants, 23 versus Philly. I don't love it. I think Rivers is okay. Versus Buffalo, I think they're just going to be running the football. I don't think they're going to want to get cute. I think they're going to see where Buffalo's weaknesses are on the tape, and they're just going to exploit them at the run. So I think Rivers is in play. I think he's good for like 15 DraftKings points. If Buffalo can push the pace, keep it competitive, maybe he'll be forced to throw the football more and could have a really big day at 5,900. So that's a GPP play. Eli Manning, I told myself I'm completely off Eli after the San Fran game. I'm just done with him. I thought they'd want to get that win, and then maybe they'd switch things up, play some of the backups or whatever. Now it's week 11, getting towards the end of the season here. They're going to want to see what they got in their future because this season is over for the Giants. So looking at Eli Manning, not one of my favorite plays at 5,700. I'm so fading him. So off the Giants. It's not even funny. I think Shepard. If you're going to play anyone from the Giants, it'd be Shepard or Ingram. And that's pretty much it. 5,700. I'm fading Eli. There's no way I pay that price. Tyrod Taylor versus the Chargers, coming off of 2 tough losses versus the Jets and versus New Orleans at home. I think Tyrod's in play here at 5,600 versus the Chargers. He's got weapons now. There's no more excuses. Tyrod doesn't have any weapons. He's really going to have to show out. Coming off 2 losses, still 5-4 with a chance to make the playoffs. I think Tyrod is going to have to put this team on his shoulders. Going to have to start running the football more and just have to be more dynamic, make the pass. He should have had Kelvin Benjamin on that first drive, I believe. If he would have placed the ball better on that second pass, I think that should have been a touchdown. Opening drive of that game versus New Orleans. After that, they had really no connection at all. It's going to be a rough end of the season for Tyrod Taylor because they're going to make some moves. Buffalo, they booed him when Peterman came in, which is crazy because I think Tyrod is the reason we've been winning football games, and the defense. And the defense let us down. And I think Tyrod just has to step it up a little bit more. I don't think Peterman's the answer for Buffalo. So Tyrod's in play here at 5,600. I think he's got a lot to prove. I follow him on Instagram, Snapchat. He posts passages from the Bible, and he's really focused, and that's what I like from him. You know, the defense put him in bad spots both games. So I think Tyrod's in play here at 5,600. Looking at Cutler, he's in play versus Tampa Bay, definitely 5,400. I can see him throwing 3 touchdowns here. Fitzpatrick's in play versus Miami at 5,300 if he has Mike Evans. I like that play a lot. Bortles versus Cleveland in play 5,200. Don't love it, but he's been productive for his price. If you look, 18, 16, 20, 14. I mean, cash game play, yeah, Bortles is in play. We don't know if Stanton or Gabbert is going to start. 4,900 versus Houston. That could be a GPP punt play. I could see the ownership being around 8% on this guy, one of them. And that's pretty much it for quarterback. Trubisky versus Detroit, don't love it. 4,500, doesn't throw the ball that much. He could be a cash game play if you want to go that route. 15, 10, 4, 10, depends what you're looking for. Very risky. They should be throwing the football, though. They should be trailing in that game. Looking at the running back position. Oh, man, my fault. Quarterback position, Case Keenum. Don't know how I missed him. I missed him because he's in the lineup here that I have on the right. Case Keenum's in play here. 5,100 versus the Rams. I like this matchup. In Case Keenum showed versus Washington with some tough corners. Threw the ball perfect spot, man. Had Josh Norman diving, couldn't get to it for a touchdown. I believe it was Thielen or Diggs. Case Keenum's in play here versus the Rams. I could see this being a shootout. If you see the build I have on the right, this is a build I'm going with for this week and a few of my lineups where I'll stack up Minnesota. Now I'll take Keenum, McKinnon, Thielen, switch that out with Diggs. Might drop McKinnon in a few spots, but I think the price is right for these guys. If you look at Thielen, he's just been going off with targets 12, 10, 12, 13. I think that's his favorite receiver. And last week, Diggs only had 5 targets, made the most of it, though, with 4 receptions. So I do like Case Keenum here, one of my favorite quarterbacks on the week. So look at the running back position. Gurley, I think he's in play. 8,400 is the highest price, but versus Minnesota on the road, I don't love it. I'm not that high on the Rams this week. I think it's going to be a tough matchup and a true test in Minnesota. Fournette versus Cleveland could be a bounce-back game, but Cleveland's been really good against the run, despite what that OPRK says. We've seen Bell fail in this matchup and a bunch of other running backs, so I don't love Fournette. Should have saw the red flag this week. I was really high in Fournette. And then I saw that all 4 running backs were active versus. So, I mean, I just don't know what to say, man. That Fournette threw me for a loop. I thought he was one of the best plays on the board. Turned out to be a bust, and he ruined a lot of my lineups this past week. So Fournette, 8,200, high price, versus Cleveland. I don't love that matchup at all. I'm going to fade him. Mark Ingram, definitely play, 8,100 versus Washington. You can run on Washington. Ingram and Kamara both in play. And if you look, the roles haven't changed at all. He's seen about 20 attempts, 21, 16, 18, 22. He had no targets last week. 1 target the week before, 6 for 6, 4 for 5 on targets for Chicago and Green Bay. Then if you look here, Kamara, his role hasn't changed at all. Seen around 10 attempts, and he gets whatever the defense allows. And then you're seeing his targets, 5, 7, 3, 7. So these two are both in play. I recommended last week rostering one of each. If you're going to take one of them, take each of them in a lineup. If you're doing low dollar, if you're doing high dollar, you're going to have to make a choice. But I recommend having them each in one lineup, and I think one of them could definitely go off without a doubt, if not both of them, as you saw last week. Looking at Kareem Hunt, he hasn't done much in the last like 4 or 5 games, and he hasn't paid off his price. Versus the Giants, I could see them having the lead and just running out the clock, and just he could probably put up 20 to 30 DraftKings points this week at 8,000 versus the Giants in play. McCoy versus the Chargers. I don't love it. I like rostering McCoy at home in favorable matchups, like versus San Francisco. So I'm not gonna target him. 7,800 versus Chargers. Price is up. Hasn't come down. No way. Gordon versus Buffalo. I could see this being a bounce back game for him. We saw Eckler get a lot of the usage this past week and having a really big game, but Gordon could go off here without a doubt. And Buffalo 31st OPRK versus the run is it's horrible. Can't believe it. So looking at Gordon, he's definitely in play. Look at the kid Eckler. We'll talk about him. Kamara definitely play at 7,500. I'm off of Jordan Howard. We saw his attempts come down, and we saw no targets. So I don't like seeing that. And you know what? It's a guessing game with this guy. Versus Detroit, I'm off it. Chris Thompson in play versus New Orleans, definitely. Montgomery could be in play here with Jones out versus Baltimore. Lamar Miller is in play versus Arizona. Don't love it though at 5,000. Jamal Williams. No Jones for a couple of weeks. Versus Baltimore could be in play. Risky. I won't take either one of them. Him or Montgomery. I'm off that. I'm off of Darkwa. I think Drake's in play. So keep an eye on Drake and Williams throughout the week. But it's versus Tampa, and their defense is not that good stopping the run. As you can see, 28th OPRK. I think Drake and Williams are in play. Definitely keep an eye on the injury reports throughout the week on Williams. Looking at James White, he's in play, but not my favorite out of the 3. I think Burkhead and Lewis are commanding that run game for New England. But James White could be in play too, 4,700. If this is a shootout, I could see all 3 of them being in play. Just like last week, they all 3 had touchdowns. White, Lewis, and Burkhead. Aaron Jones is out for a couple of weeks, so look at the other guys if you want. That's risky versus Baltimore. Chris Ivory, I'm off, but look at Eckler. Eckler had 10 attempts, 42 yards. He was involved in the passing game, 5 targets, 5 receptions, had 2 touchdowns in the pass game, 27.9 DraftKings points. His ownership must have been so low, less than like 3% probably in tournaments. But you know what? He's in play. It's Buffalo. We just saw 3 running backs score touchdowns on Buffalo. Kamara, Ingram, and some other guy that I forgot his name. So if you're looking here, it could be Eckler, it could be Melvin Gordon. All of them could go off. 4,500, good play, risky, GPP. Not interested in many down here. You got Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, he could get 2 goal line carries, punch it in, 4,300. I think he did that, a week ago. Put up 20 DraftKings points, his best game of the year. Saw 2 targets, 2 receivings, 2 receptions for 6 yards, and then he had 14 attempts, 57 yards with 2 touchdowns. That's his best game of the year versus Miami, and it could happen versus New England. It's a risky play. 4,300. He's in the pool. Looking at Deion Lewis, definitely in play, 4,200. Riddick's in play versus Chicago, 4,100. Abdullah, I believe, fumbled twice versus Green Bay. And Riddick had a decent game here versus Cleveland, who's stingy versus the run. Saw 3 targets, 3 receptions, and a touchdown. So he's in play. He's good for about 10 DraftKings points. Crowell versus Jacksonville, yeah, he's okay. Risky. Wouldn't chance it. Latavius Murray versus the Rams, maybe. That's even risky. I don't like that much. Saw 17 attempts, 68 yards, had a touchdown, 12.8 DraftKings points. It's risky, but I prefer McKinnon in that matchup. But if you want to save some money, go on Murray. That's a risky GPP play. Alex Collins versus Green Bay, 3,900. Take a look at him for a punt. I like that a lot. He'll go low. The running back I have in this lineup is McKinnon and Burkhead, just off a first look build. I got Case Keenum, some Minnesota stack, Case Keenum, McKinnon, Burkhead, Thielen. So looking at wide receivers, I believe Mike Evans is the most expensive at 7,900 versus Miami. Definitely in play. If you're looking for a cheap stack, that's not that cheap because Mike Evans is most expensive, but you can put Fitz at quarterback, Mike Evans, save some money there. Michael Thomas versus Washington. Don't love it, but at 7,400, he's okay if you want to pair him up with Breeze. Could be a shootout. Tyreek Hill definitely in play versus the Giants. You can get a double dip out of him and take Kansas City's defense. Tyreek Hill, Kansas City defense. He runs one back for a punt, kickoff return. You get a double dip, you get points on defense, and you get the receiver points. So I think Tyreek Hill's in play. A little risky. I won't have that much exposure. I'm off of AJ Green versus Denver. Fitz versus Houston, price came up. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I really don't love that play at all. Only if you're doing like a Sunday, Monday, or a short slate Monday, Thursday, when I roster Fitz. So not in this case, not in this scenario. Golden Tate for Chicago, he's okay. I don't like the price. Diggs is definitely in play for me, 6,700. As is Thielen, who I have locked in already. Adam Thielen, he's just seen so many targets. 12, 10, 12, 13. You give me that many targets versus the Rams, I'm going to take it. I'll pay the 7,200. For Diggs, he's seeing targets as well, 5, 6, 4, and 7. Made the most of it, 4 for 5. Then he had a touchdown, 17 DraftKings points. He's definitely in play, but I prefer Thielen. Seems to be Keenum's safety blanket and favorite receiver. So looking at Cooks, I think he's in play versus Oakland. That could be a great play at 6,600. You want to pair him up with Brady. Parker versus Tampa is in play, and so is Landry, right around the same price, 65, 6,400. Both of those guys are in play. Shepard's in play. I don't love it because I just think the Giants are done. After that loss to San Francisco, I wouldn't put any trust into the Giants. But I really was high on Shepard last week. Helped me cash in some of my lineups. Put up a monster score, DraftKings points. He's okay here versus Kansas City. Andy Reid probably will shut him down. He will game plan around it, knowing that's one of their only weapons, him and Ingram, and he could shut that down. So 6,300, that's a high price. We're not getting the value and the savings from last week. Hopkins versus Arizona, he's okay at 6,100. He sees a lot of targets, and that's what you like here, 14, 16, 11. That's what we want to see, and they should be trailing here. And if they're not trailing, it should be a competitive game, low score. So we'll see what happens. Woods, Goff's favorite receiver, 6,000. Price came up a whole $1,000. So looking here, saw 10 targets, 5, 7, 7. That's what we like. Should be a nice little shootout here. That's what I got the game projected at. I think Woods is definitely in play. Had a monster week. Wish I had more of them. Wish I didn't get off Goff later in the week and jump on to the Pittsburgh stack because I would have made a killing. I cashed in all my Woods Goff's lineups, and I got off half of them to jump on. There was just so much value I could rot with the receivers that I could roster Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. So I got off a lot of Goff lineups that I had in position, which wasn't good. So I think in this spot, it could be a shootout here, 6,000. He's in play. He's seeing the targets. He's definitely in play. Rhodes could shut him down, though. So might be worth the fade, but I like the Minnesota side of that ball. Looking at Cooper versus New England, I think he's a good play, 6,000. Definitely in play for me. I think he can burn Gilmore here. or whoever's guarding him. I think they could go off. Looking at Keenan Allen versus Buffalo, I think this would be a breakout game for him. Hasn't really done much as of late, but he's seeing 7, 5, 7, and 9 targets, and he could just burn Buffalo. I think you burn him with the run, so if Buffalo makes the game competitive, Keenan Allen could be in play here. So if this game stays close, I think Keenan Allen have a good game. Probably see about 7, 8, 9 targets. Crabtree's in play here, 5,900. Thomas for Cincinnati, don't love it. Amendola's in play at 5,700. The price is up on him though a little bit. Marvin Jones for Chicago, don't love that, but he's in play. Could be a bounce back week for him. Sanders, he's okay. Marquise Lee versus Cleveland, don't love that. Kelvin Benjamin or Deshaun Jackson versus Miami in play at 5,100. Getting Mike Evans back only helps him, so you should see the weaker defender. Kelvin Benjamin in play at 5,000. I believe Tyrod hooks up with him this week for a touchdown. That'd be one of my bold calls of the week. Ted Ginn Jr. versus Washington in play for me, 4,800. He'll go under the radar. Macklin versus Green Bay, questionable. We got to see. Cooper Kupp, don't mind him. Watkins, don't mind him. John Brown could be in play here versus Houston. He could be a sneaky play at 4,200, get a touchdown. Stills, don't mind him at 4,000. That's risky. Much rather pay for Brown. Cobb's okay. I don't really like any of these guys. It'd be a tough matchup for him, especially with Hundley under the helm. Mike Wallace versus Green Bay, 3,800. He could be in play. That's sneaky. Flacco could go off on these Packers. Tyrell Williams versus Buffalo, 3,600. He could have a big game here. You want to look at him. I believe Josh Gordon's coming back soon, maybe next week or in 2 or 3 weeks. I think he comes back to practice next week, so we're going to have to keep an eye on him. But if he's got a favorable matchup, I'm throwing him out there. That kid, if he gets his stuff together, he could be a really good player in this league. As far as Jordan Matthews, maybe. That's just an extreme punt. He's not seeing a lot of targets. Thompson, the same thing. These two guys are risky, but they are in play because they are weapons of Tyrod. And he saw 4-10 last 2 weeks. And he had a big game versus the Jets. So I could see one of these guys having a decent outing here. Bellamy, risky. Yeah, all these guys are kind of risky down here. Looking at the tight end, by far the best tight end on the map. You got Gronk versus Oakland. That's a great spot. Ingram versus Kansas City. Don't mind it. Definitely high price, though. Cook versus New England. I like that. He's seeing the targets. And then you got Brait versus Miami. That's okay. Fedorowicz versus Arizona. He'd be in play for me. Bennett versus Oakland. He could have 4 or 5 catches here. We saw him have a decent outing for being banged up. 3 for 3, 38 yards. Him and Tom Brady got a connection. By far, my favorite tight end is Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, 7,300. You're paying for him, but every tight end has scored versus the Giants. And I think the trend continues. I just don't know if he's going to have a 27 DraftKings points game or what, but I think the trend continues here with Kelce. I think he goes off, he has a big day, and it will continue the trend of every team's tight end has scored against the Giants. They're the worst versus the tight end by far. And if you look here, he's the most expensive and they're 32nd in OPRK. So, I mean, he's a lock. And if you want to fade him for Gronk, thinking this game will be more of a shootout, that's not a bad play. Because let's say Kelce gets a touchdown. He only got four targets, 3 for 4, 60 yards and a touchdown. Gronk could outscore him with like 35 if this game's a shootout. It could happen. So you could throw in Gronk. You could throw in Kelce. But I think Kelce's a lock for a touchdown this week. And if you look at the defense, my favorite defense right here is by far the Jags. I'm not even going to play around with this. I'm going to pay up 4,000. Jags versus Cleveland, without a doubt. Kaiser's questionable. It should be a slaughter. So Jaguars defense, #1 for me. You're looking at Broncos versus Cincinnati, don't mind it. Lions versus Chicago, don't mind that. Saints are okay, but it's just Jaguars, man. I'm just paying for it. Lock it in. If you want to go down a bit, Really don't love any defense down here. Yeah, I'm just paying up for the Jags. I'm not even thinking twice. That's pretty much it. I got a Minnesota stack. Case Keenum, McKinnon, Thielen with Burkhead, Travis Kelce, Jaguars. That leaves me with 5,700 for two receivers and a flex. I could pay down for a flex spot, pay down for a receiver, and then pay up. A couple different options here, but that's just a build that I put together real quick for the video that I like. I'm going to have some exposure to Keenum, Thielen, Diggs. Might have McKinnon in there. Switch out a few of the other running backs that I like, as in Gordon or Eckler, wherever I want to go. You could look at Drake Williams from Miami. These guys could have decent games here. Ingram, Kamara, definitely in play versus Washington if you want to take one of them. And my quarterbacks that I'm paying up for would be Brady, Breeze. You can look at Alex Smith, Carr, Rivers, Tyrod Taylor, Cutler, Fitzpatrick, and even Bortles. He's been kind of steady for a cash game play. So that's it for NFL Week 11. Good luck in your contest. I would hate me too on DraftKings, FanDuel if you want to add me to your leagues. If you want to join the DFS Wolfpack, hit me up. Leave your username in the comment section on the YouTube video. And that's it. Let's get this money.